Look, in life, sometimes, you know, it's pretty tough. We've just got to accept the umpire's decision, don't we?
Now, it wasn't on the fuel problem. It was to do with the bodywork or the structure of the other cars.
Yeah, it was try and explain it in a non-technical way. They were protested against having their fenders raised, and that meant they could lower the car and fit fat tyres under it, and that makes a lot of difference to the speed of any car. And they said, we don't like that. So Eggenberger's appealed against it, which is quite normal. But I sort of don't like his chances, really.
All right, so it's 9 wins at Bathurst. Let's come back to here now. Is this the last race for the Commodore, for the Brock Commodore?
Looks like it, doesn't it?
Sad.
Yeah, the boys will be having a couple of beers tonight, I can assure you. But I suppose you look at it and say, well, it is sad, and I really haven't sat back and thought about it yet. But I guess the only positive aspect is looking forward to a fancy, really good 88 with those little BMs.
All right, and the team has been sold?
No, it hasn't. As a matter of fact, if any viewers out there would like to buy one going concern, HTT Racing, magnificent track record, bring us up.
OK, give them plenty today. Be nice to see you go out in the win.
Thanks. It'd be fantastic. I'll be going for it, I can tell you that.
Okay.
Yes, congratulations to Peter Brock. I thought 12-metre yacht racing was rather peculiar, Ian, with all the protests and appeals afterwards. There's a man that's won Australia's major touring car race 6 weeks after the event.
Yes, at least the protests in 12-metre racing, 12-metre yacht racing, they get those over and done with at least the next day, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, it must be a tough way to win a race, but more so a tough way to lose one when you're told 6 weeks later that you didn't win anyway.
Well, they might not have lost. They can still appeal. In another 6 weeks' time, they might have won. The Eggenbergers might have won it again.
It could be part of the it could be a bicentennial project, the continuing saga of Bathurst. However, talking of touring cars, we'll be back with the
whole team. We buy our technology from overseas, where they've been doing it for a lot longer than we have, and we're having a fairly good run of success with it.
Well, this circuit, a street circuit, you're starting in a good position. Can you win this one?
Yeah, I think we can. You know, providing that transmissions are a little bit on the suspect side. We've got stronger transmissions coming next year. But providing, we don't have any problem that way, I think we'll be looking pretty good for the race. The car's very easy on tyres and handles very well.
First corner's always a bit dodgy here.
Yeah, I think we just have to make a go. Go like buggery and see what happens.
OK, have a good one.
Thank you.
Patrick Lindsay.
Thanks very much, Darryl. I've got Larry Perkins on pole position. Larry, an inspirational sort of a crowd here in extraordinary conditions. Does that help you? Does it inspire you?
Well, actually, unfortunately, it doesn't, but I can assure you it doesn't do me any harm. It's absolutely excellent to be here in this support role to the best you've got in the world, you know, the Formula One cars, and perfect day, and I've got, my Commodore absolutely flying, or my team, as I should say, and we're pleased to be on the pole position, and I'll be even more pleased if we pull it off, though, I can assure you.
Andrew Maidecki's very confident. How confident are you?
Well, if confidence actually helped me win the race, I'd be more confident than him, but I'm a realist, and we know we've done our preparation well. I reckon I can steer it around, or I hope I can, and that's what you need to win races, and all the will in the world won't alter that.
Great. Good luck. Over to you now, Darryl.
Well, Glenn Seaton, you might be one of the youngest, but one of the fastest. It's an old car, but once again, you've qualified it right up the head of the grid.
That's right, the car went fairly well in qualifying yesterday. I was very surprised too. We sort of done our qualifying time on second-hand tyres, and it's going to be a very long race today, very hot today, and I think it's whoever's going to survive is going to finish well.
Is this little car suited to the street circuit here with the tight boundaries and concrete walls?
Yeah, it's very good. It's sort of, the cars are no good on high-speed corners and things like that, but around the street circuit they get out of these tight corners very well, and that's what suits this car.
What have you got to do to defeat the Sierras and the Commodores? I mean, what's your tactic in a race of this length in this heat?
Well, we're going to go flat out from the word go. We're going to treat it as a sprint race, even though it is a fair distance even in this heat. But that's about all we can do with a car like this with no power.
Fair to say this is the car's last race?
Yeah, this is definitely the last race, and I'll be glad to see a new car next year.
OK, good luck today.
Thank you.
South Pacific Touring Car Championship round 1 here in Adelaide. 32 laps. Let's have a look at the top 8 on the grid. And number 1 will be Larry Perkins, number 2 Andrew Maidecki, number 3 young Glenn Seaton. We just saw the boys talking to him. Colin Bond will be going from number 4. Number 5 Dick Johnson, the fiery Queenslander. Number 6 Alan Grice. Number 7, George Fury, and number 8, the winner of Bathurst for the time being, Peter Brock. Okie doke, let's go to our commentators now, Murray Walker and Alan Moffat. And Murray, this should certainly be quite useful around that first corner this afternoon.
Yes, and what a great day it is for Australia. Wayne Gardner here today as Australia's world champion in motorcycle racing, and 9 times winner at Bathurst, Peter Brock, going for a win here in the South Pacific Touring Car Championship in his last drive for Holden before taking up the cudgels on behalf of BMW. Here they come. Alan Moffat, you're the man. Who is going to win?
Well, I wouldn't like to throw $10 on the table right away, Murray. I'm not going to fall for that. You're too astute on that department. But certainly any one of these 5 cars on the front is going to have an excellent chance. Very warm today, so the turbos are not going to be at their total efficiency that they have been on colder days. The Commodores are strong here, and as such can be driven hard. Alan Grice showed us last year with his win that you could bounce it from curb to curb and still come home. They are very strong cars, and as such can handle the bumps. I don't think the smaller cars can do that as effectively.
Larry Perkins in the Holden Commodore, Andy Mydecker in the Sierra Cosworth, Glenn Seaton there in the Nissan Skyline, Colin Bond in an Alfa Romeo. 4 different makes and types of car in the first 4 places on the grid. Then the famous Dick Johnson, 5th on the grid, ahead of Alan Grice. 7th, George Fury, and in 8th position, the man we will all be watching with especial interest, Peter Brock. But in pole position, what I think of now as the veteran, although he's only 37 years old, heaven knows, Larry Perkins, the studious-looking man in his rimless glasses, going for it from pole position in that tough, strong Holden Commodore. Will he be able to stave off Andy Mydecker in the Sierra Cosworth? A smaller, perhaps nimbler car, which will suit well this Adelaide circuit, as will Glenn Seaton's 2-litre Nissan Skyline. Colin Bond well up in the turbocharged Alfa Romeo, ahead of Dick Johnson's Sierra. Down there, Alan Grice in the Commodore. So 2 Commodores in the top 6. It's a long, grueling race, 32 laps. That's nearly 121 kilometres. And it's going to be a very hot, tired, perspiring selection of drivers that finish this race, which is going to be starting very shortly. Watch for the red. There it is. Watch for the green. There it is. It is go. Perkins gets away beautifully. Colin Bond streaks through into 2nd place ahead of Glenn Seaton. Andy Mydecker drops back. It is Perkins leading. Bond up into 2nd place. Seaton in 3rd as they go through the S's. They're bouncing and bumping off the curbs. From the S's, they go through into that series of right and left, right angle turns, Wakefield turn, East Terrace bend, Flinders bend, then onto Market's turn. And it's still Larry Perkins with the advantage of a clear track in front of him. Bond is 2nd, Seaton is 3rd. There they go. There are the Sierras streaking through. And there is 4.9 litres of V8 power in the front as for the first lap in this 32-lap race. Larry Perkins sets his car up for the run down towards Brewery Bend, Brabham Straight, and then on to Racetrack Hairpin, and Glenn Seaton is trying to take 2nd place from Colin Bond. But already, it seems to me, Alan, Larry's building up a bit of a lead. Colin Bond is holding him up. Yes, no?
Yes, he is, but to his credit, Perkins got a fabulous start. Badecki lost the start, turbo lag, and really this new Casio Commodore has got every chance of opening up an opportunity here on the first few laps with no one in front of him to bother him but fresh air.
Here they come towards the end of the first lap. Out of the Victoria hairpin, the right-hander on the racecourse, which they are approaching now with Larry Perkins leading. Glenn Seaton is now 2nd. Colin Bond is in 3rd position. So it is the Holden leading, the Nissan in 2nd, Alfa Romeo in 3rd place, but for how much longer? Because it looked to me as though he was about to lose that 3rd place, Colin Bond. But across the line leads Perkins. Seaton is 2nd. Up into 3rd goes Brock. Peter Brock is in 3rd position from 8th on the grid on the first lap. What an absolutely sensational first lap for Peter Brock in the famous number 5, and this is the last time he will be driving 5 in the Holden. There he is. Well, Alan, would you have expected that?
No, I wouldn't, but I think it was the very poor start of the other cars ahead of him. The Commodores are renowned for getting their power down on the track, a little bit heavier, well, not a little bit, the heaviest cars in the field, and as such they can transmit that power and get the maximum grip from their tires. But that's an excellent start for Peter from a grid position of 8th position.
And now look at the nimble Nissan of number 15, Glenn Seaton. Is he going to be able to stave off the power of Peter Brock's Holden?
Not on this straight, and I think, well, he's doing not a bad job. They're not quite onto the straight. Here he comes, slipstreaming the skyline, and I think it'll only be a matter of seconds. He'll pull out and flatten that 440-odd horsepower coming out of that Holden Commodore.
And let's watch for it now. Holden leads. Is it Holden second? Yes, it is. From 8th on the grid to 2nd on the 2nd lap goes Peter Brock. The only man he's got ahead of him now is Larry Perkins in a similar motor car. Holden Commodores 1st and 2nd. Nissan Skyline in 3rd position. And Colin Bond in the Alfa Romeo is dropping back. Glenn Seaton is holding on. The first 3 are out on their own. And Peter Brock has certainly got a massive charge of adrenaline.
Yes, and he's going to charge here. He's going to close up. He has closed up on Perkins through the hairpin, and it could be down through the chicane on this next lap. He'll have a chance of even getting a closer look at the back of that Commodore in front of him.
7/10 of a second between Larry Perkins and Peter Brock there, number 5. 11 leads, 5 second, 15 Glenn Seaton in 2nd place. But won't there be a cheer from Australia if Peter Brock gets into that lead position, notwithstanding the fact that he would be taking Larry Perkins in the process.
Well,
and Perkins, of course, has got Brock really big in his mirror now.
Absolutely, he'll be looking like a praying mantis. Brock's close enough to be in the slipstream, and when they get on to Brabham Straight, he'll certainly be able to sneak right up onto the bumper bar of that car in front of him and nail him midway or perhaps under brakes at the end of the straight, but he's definitely in the slipstream.
Alan, Peter Brock can't see anything of the track ahead of him at all. Is he just driving on the boot lid of Larry Perkins and following it?
Well, he knows he's got a great driver in front of him. He doesn't have to worry about where Perkins is placing it, and he can literally chase that boot around to that Casio Commodore and wait for an opportunity, which I think he's starting to think about right now.
Yeah, this looks like it. Peter Brock going for it, but Larry Perkins having none of it. Larry Perkins, of course, who has driven for Brabham in Grand Prix racing, drove in 11 Grand Prix in his distinguished career. European Formula 3 champion of 1975. Matter of fact, I think he was 14 Grand Prix he drove in, but anyway, never mind that at the moment. It's what's happening here at Adelaide that matters, and we're on lap 3, which is 1/11 distance, just over, in this 32-lap race, and Glenn Seaton is holding on. So it's Holden leading, Holden 2nd, Nissan 3rd, and Brock now with Glenn Seaton, and definitely Larry Perkins is holding him up, because look how Glenn Seaton, and what about that?
Well, Perkins is driving defensively, and there's no prizes for saying, after me, you're first, Peter. He's doing what he should do. He's got the lead car, it's his corner, and it's up to Brocky to get by under merits.
They call this touring car racing. If this is touring, then I am a Dutchman. And Glenn Seaton is holding on magnificently when you think that his car has got a smaller engine capacity, and now Brock Seaton in 3rd position, chasing Larry Perkins. Nothing in it. Lap 4, 32-lap race, and the crowd, understandably, is agog. But just let's keep you in the picture by telling you that Andrew Maideke is in 4th position. In 5th position, it is Dick Johnson Sierra, and in 6th place, it is George Fury. But this is the battle.
Seaton has just pulled out of the slipstream. It is obviously getting a bit hot there. He's got a turbocharged car which gets hot enough, upwards of 1,000 degrees under that bonnet by itself, and he doesn't want to lose the cold air. He's pulled out again, not something that the Holdens are fooling around with.
Yeah, but look behind them. Look at the Sierras of Maideke and Dick Johnson, the 2 red cars. As once again, Brock gets his nose right up alongside Larry Perkins. This is lap 4, but Perkins has got the inside line, which he's perfectly entitled to hold, and he does so, and I dare say he would hold it even if he wasn't entitled to, because Perkins leads, Brock 2nd, Seaton 3rd, Maideke is in 4th position, and Dick Johnson is in 5th place, still ahead of the Nissan Skyline of George Fury.
Well, if these Holden drivers keep this pace up, they're not going to have tires left for another 10 laps, Murray, and you'll find that the Sierras will come up ever so slowly. Glenn Seaton's got a great position there. He's saving his engine, just lulling along, taking advantage of the slipstream of 2 big cars in front of him, and he's waiting for his opportunity as the tires get extra hot on the Commodores, which they have to be at this pace that they're moving.
He doesn't want to do too much curb hopping like that, but in the meantime, look, Maideki in the red Sierra in the background is closing up. But is his transmission going to go the distance?
Well, we know what it's like to lose transmissions in these Ford cars at the moment, Murray, and we could almost say we're experts at it. They are fragile, but certainly the 2 red cars in the background running 4th and 5th are having their own scrap. They're trying to stay in their own slipstream. Dick Johnson hanging on with all fury there so that he doesn't lose the opportunity to stay with Madeki on the straights. They don't want to lose that advantage.
And on the straights, the Holdens and everybody else at the front are doing some 140 miles an hour. Glenn Seaton comes up alongside Peter Brock, looking for the inside, just showing Peter Brock by moving out of his mirror that he's going for a passing move, but that's not going to fool a veteran like Peter. But if Peter stays right behind Larry Perkins, as he is doing, and Perkins slows just even a fraction, Glenn Seaton could go through. What Seaton is doing, of course, is looking for the cool air to keep that turbo of his at a lower temperature. But now on lap 5 out of 32, with a searing contest at the front, Larry Perkins, who started from pole, still leads in the Holden Commodore from Peter Brock, who has come up from 8th to 2nd. In the process, he passed Glenn Seaton of the Nissan Skyline, who started 3rd. In 4th position, it's Andy Maidecker in the Ford Sierra, immediately followed by Dick Johnson 5th. And in 6th position now, it's Alan Grice. So Commodores are 1st, 2nd and 6th.
Not bad for an end-of-season vehicle that everybody said should be put out to pasture. Perkins has his car handling extremely well, and actually I have to compliment the Holden dealer team. I see Brocky's car looking as good as it ever has all season. Tires will be a worry to them. They can't last this pace. And there, a little slide, little fishtail, oversteer as we'd call it in technical terms. The more you see the Commodores doing that, will be Glenn Seaton's opportunity to slide into 2nd and then ultimately top position.
In non-technical terms, I would call it a sliding sensation, because it is miraculous to me the way they manage to keep these cars on the track at the speed they're going. And now we could be in a very interesting situation, because the leaders, look, Perkins, Brock and Seaton are closing up on a tail ender, and if he gets things wrong, there could be a change for 1st, 2nd or 3rd. Well, Perkins is passed, Brock is passed, Seaton is passing and is now passed. Maidecker is closing up on Seaton. Dick Johnson in 5th place is getting back, and
there's
Perkins
a brake.
Slides it.
There's a brake lock-up. There's the first signs. These cars wouldn't be running their full complement of fuel. They can carry 120 liters. No necessity to do that in a short race of only 120 kilometers. Larry Perkins will be fiddling with his onboard brake boost, which can dial a bit more brake onto the front. And he'll need to do that because, as I recall last year, that's exactly what happened to Alan Grice in a similar position. They are going for broke. Full power on the brakes, too much on the back, locked up, and they get a tail.
Holden horsepower, Alan, what? What horsepower the big Holden's producing?
For about 440, 450, Murray.
And that'll do nicely. So now, there is Larry Perkins, and there's a bit of a gap. And Maidecker is the man to watch, because Maidecker is now right up with Glenn Seaton.
I think that looked like Johnson sliding through there, Murray. I saw a shell sign on the bonnet.
You're quite right. My apologies. Maidecker is dropping back. Dick Johnson, who we're used to seeing in the famous green Mustang, is now up into 4th position. This is his 1st season in the Sierra. We are on lap 7. There's still a lot of enjoyment left in this race, because it's a 32-lap race. So, Brock 2nd, Seaton 3rd, Dick Johnson right up with the Nissan Skyline in 4th place, and Maidecker dropping back in 5th position.
Madecky's in the pits, Murray, so I think you can say goodbye to his race. It's going to be a challenge now between Johnson and Seaton, and he's already passed him. If he gets into the slipstream of this Commodore, it'll give him an opportunity. He's past Brock. I don't think, oh, yep, he's done it.
Wow, what
well,
about
I don't kind
that,
of wick
then?
his turn.
Dick Johnson, number 17, up from 4th position to 2nd position in 1 lap. Now, he's passed one Holden. He's got to catch and then pass the other one. that of Larry Perkins.
I think what Johnson may have been doing was saving his tires originally. You don't just get that kind of squirt by turning on some mysterious automatic pilot. He did a fantastic leap forward in the positions and has now got a commanding position to take on Perkins and challenge for the lead. He may have been nursing his tires, Murray.
Well, the gap between Perkins and Johnson is 1.15 seconds only, and we are now on lap 12. Well, there's Andy Madecki, looking very sad, as he might well do. He was confident of doing well when he was talking to us before the race began, and the race is now over for him, because even if he rejoins it, he's going to be right out of contention. What do you reckon is the trouble, Alan?
Well, they're working in the back. It could be an electrical fuel problem. They're certainly not working on the suspension. The bonnet's up, probably just a little bit of heat out of it, but the mechanics are definitely at the back where all the fuel pumps are. Helmet off doesn't augur too well for getting a quick return into the car. It's a savage business, Murray. If it was easy, everybody'd be doing it.
Yeah, well, Andy fought for the James Hardy 1000 lead with Steve Soper for a long time and lost it. And now Dick Johnson's going for it. Look at this, practically sawing the Holden of Larry Perkins in half with his front bumper. And it's now lap 8. Larry Perkins leads on the Holden, but for how much longer is Johnson past? He is! Dick Johnson takes the lead.
When you can slipstream a car the size of the Commodore, you've got to have the slingshot effect, and we saw that dramatically demonstrated just then. Now, if Johnson plays it cool, he should be able to maintain this position. If his reliability factor comes in, he can certainly drive it. He's not afraid to bounce around these corners. Perkins isn't going to let him get away with it. He's going to stay there as long as he can, but that was an extremely smart move on Dick Johnson's part, sitting back initially, letting the original foray go by, and saving his tires up to the point where he felt, well, these fellas are really going slower than I would like to, so here I am now. I want my shell machine in front.
Well, the pride of Queensland has done it. The ATC champion of 3 years, 81, 82, 84. First at Bathurst in 1981, and look at the way he's going now. He's in a race on his own, and of course after Wellington he had troubles that he had to put right before he could even start here, and Brock is in. Peter Brock is in the pits.
Car's going up. It'll be tires for sure. No, he's getting out. Overdone it.
Oh, well, what a tragedy.
That was
Peter
a furious
Brock,
pace.
That is the last time we have seen Peter Brock, who has driven so magnificently for Holden through the years, in a race for Holden. And that race is over on lap 9 out of 32. Peter Brock, who sensationally came up from 8th on the grid to 2nd on the race, challenging Larry Perkins, who's now dropped back to 2nd place, is out of round 1 of the South Pacific Touring Car Championship race here at Adelaide.
It always looks easy when you're out in front, Murray, but he's got a long way to go, and the underbonnet temperatures on a turbo, on particularly a Sierra, reach almost 1,000 degrees centigrade, so there'll be plenty of things cooking under the bonnet of that little Ford. He's got a long way to go to stay in front, but it does look reasonably effortless at the moment.
Now, what would you be doing, Alan, in this situation? How much of a cushion would you be wanting to build between yourself and Larry Perkins in 2nd place in the Holden in order to rest yourself in the car a bit?
What he's got is quite sufficient. In fact, he probably a bit more than he really needs, but he can now drive on the gap. His board will tell him as he goes by now. Certainly not thrashing the car like that. And there goes...
That's a big one. Wow-wee, and he's missed everything.
Gary Scott.
Unbelievable.
Unreal.
That's Gary Scott in the Starion. I don't think I have ever seen anybody do a T-top cue like that. Off the course, spin right round, through everyone and touch nothing.
Well, the Formula One fellows have been showing us how to do it. Perhaps he was watching a bit of this morning's qualifying session.
He's learned well, because that was absolutely incredible. Meantime, lap 10, we're through quarter distance. Lap 8 was quarter distance. Lap 10 is up to a 3rd distance, and there goes Gary Scott again, out of sight, behind the wall, spins round, misses 1, 2, 3 of them, loses it at the front, snicks it into gear, and away.
Don't do that every day of the week. But here we have Dick Johnson still in the lead, quite capable of nursing it to a degree. Certainly Perkins is a threat to him, but not one that would be pressing at the moment. And
I think Ford and everybody, Alan, have done a great job on development of this Sierra. When it first came out in Britain, it was called the Jelly Mold car, and everybody used to be a bit disparaging about it. But Ford have just worked away at it, got the handling absolutely superb, the power right. The question is, what about the reliability?
Well, little things make up big ships, Murray, and race cars are no different. They have to have, from bumper bar to bumper bar, everything. It doesn't matter what goes wrong. If the car stops, you don't get a performance. And we certainly would love to see Dick Johnson come through today at the last race of the season and do a nice job for himself and his sponsors after a year-long run that has not been his happiest season.
Well, one of the men who are troubling him is out because Seaton has spun, and up into third place now has come Alan Grice. But meantime, let's join Darrell Eastlake with Peter Brock in the pits.
Peter, not the way you wanted to go out with the old Holden.
No, but it was going well until then. Challenging, and Glenn Seaton unfortunately hit my front wheel, bent the suspension, no major damage, but unable to continue. That's life.
There is the leader, and meantime Glenn Seaton has come into the pits directly in front of our commentary position. The Nissan looks as though it's well and truly out of the race. They're pulling away at the front fender to get it clear of the wheel. The bonnet is up. Dick Johnson is leading. This is lap 11, and it is time just for a little while to leave Adelaide. Come back to us soon. Corner is leading. Larry Perkins is still in second place. In third place, it's Alan Grice. Fourth is George Fury. Fifth is Colin Bond. Andy Maideke is back into the race. And there is the Sierra Cosworth. Now, what's happened to Glenn Seaton in the Nissan? That's what happened to Glenn Seaton. Slap bang, Alakazam into the concrete wall, and that doesn't do the bodywork any good at all.
Alakazam, that's a beauty, Murray. Where has he come from? Fabulous. Well, that's very uncharacteristic. Glenn Seaton has had a fabulous season. He very, very seldom puts a foot amiss, but that's on one occasion when it's hurt him, and that wall bites hard.
Dick Johnson leads then. Larry Perkins is still second. Let's have another look at what happened to Glenn Seaton as we go backwards for Christmas, and he comes away from the wall. That's what happened to him when he bounced out of contention. He has come into the pits. They've levered away at the front of the car. And now, though, for race 8 at Rosehill, the Carrington Whip. It's a long, hard, tough race here at Adelaide in this Touring Car Championship, round 1 of the South Pacific Championship. But Dick Johnson still leads. Larry Perkins is still second, about 3 seconds behind him. Alan Grice third, is about the same distance behind Perkins. George Fury is fourth, and Colin Bond in the Turbo Alpha is in 5th place. But without wishing to seem unduly gloomy, I wonder if the Sierra is going to last the distance, because I noticed several times, and there you see Larry Perkins in 2nd place with Alan Grice closing up on him. Last year's winner is close on the boot lid of Larry Perkins Holden. But to come back to the leader, Dick Johnson, I've noticed some telltale puffs of blue smoke from the back of his car. Is all well?
The only kind of smoke you want coming out of a turbo is black smoke, Murray, and that doesn't look good. We've only just got by the halfway mark. It's a long way to go for Johnson to hold this race together. Here's Grice coming through, getting onto the boot of Perkins. They'll give him an opportunity to slipstream. I think we're going to have a real fight for 2nd place before this race is over.
Yeah, look at this. This is the battle in this race as they come up now to the Holden of John Farrell. Past goes Larry Perkins. Now that's a good move, because he's put, no, it didn't last for very long. I was going to say he's put Farrell between himself and Grice, but not for long, because Holden's now 2nd and 3rd behind the Ford Sierra Cosworth RS 500 of Dick Johnson. And there's a terrific scrap between these two for 2nd place.
And it'll be a scrap to the wire. We've got a tire war going on here. Perkins runs Dunlops. Grice has pioneered the Yokohama brand for many seasons, and the Yokohama brand has been renowned for hanging on just a little bit longer on occasions. And if Larry is suffering, it's not going to take long for Grice to pounce him in a weak moment. This will be a few laps to go, I suspect. He's not that close yet.
So it is not inconceivable that we could see a 2-in-a-row winner for Alan Grice, who won last year. And look, it certainly seems to me that Larry Perkins is having grip problems with his Dunlop tyres, because he certainly slid there, and he's more than conscious of the fact that Alan Grice is right behind him. Race order on lap 16, which is half distance. Leading Dick Johnson, he's about 8 seconds ahead now. Let's have a look. Yeah, there it is. That's a replay of Larry Perkins nearly losing the Holden in second place. But Dick Johnson leads. Larry Perkins in second place. Alan Grice in third position. In fourth place now, it is George Fury. In fifth position, it is Colin Bond. And in sixth place, it's number 6, David Parsons, who actually went off the course and has rejoined.
Still a scrap here. Gracie would be aware of how many laps to go, but certainly this is a praying mantis position. I wouldn't like to be in Perkins' shoes at the moment, but two fine handling Commodores, two fellows that have campaigned these vehicles throughout the season, Murray. Perkins would be one of the lead exponents of the General Motors product, and has had probably one of the fastest cars throughout the year. Certainly a very fine run on engine reliability. Neil Burns, his engine engineer, gave us our 24-hour engine for Spa earlier in the year, and we were very, very pleased with the performance of that engine for 24 hours. So I don't think Larry's going to be worrying about whether his engine's going to get him through 120 kilometers here today, but he will be worrying about this Bob Jane Grice mobile behind him.
What about driver fitness, Alan? Because it's a long, tough race. It's going to be very hot inside those driving compartments. Grice having a look. Both men equally fit, do you think?
Yes, there's no question of that. Larry's extremely fit, and as is Alan. You have to be to drive Group A cars. They are fairly difficult to drive. This is not an armchair drive, contrary to what some people may think, that they're just having their normal car around for a couple of laps Sunday afternoon drive. Saturday, I should say.
Well, meantime, these two scrapping for second place are giving, paradoxically enough, Dick Johnson an easier time in front, because Dick is able to choose his line. He's got a fairly clear track in front of him. He's got one or two slower men to pass. The gap between them now is 9.7 seconds. There goes Johnson, or rather here comes Johnson in the Shell car with those distinctive logos on the headlight glasses.
He's doing it nicely, Murray. 9-second gap is a tremendous cushion in a race of this distance. All he has to do is play it cool, save his tires as best he can. He's not having any trouble with his Dunlops, that's for sure.
And he's not having any trouble getting through the midfield, man. Just picking his moment. And there's somebody with a major problem.
Dennis Hurley in a Skyline from Perth. Don't think he's going anywhere. And not in a position that would necessitate the use of the black flag. I think the marshals will just keep the customary yellow there as a precaution, but no need to worry about throwing up the black flag.
I thought he parked it very nicely, actually. There he goes. Replace. Almost up alongside the wall, facing the wrong way, in nobody's way. And Dick Johnson continues his victorious march through the field. He is now on lap 18 out of 32. And it would be, I'm sure, a famous victory for Dick and for the Sierra. And look at that! Because that's Perkins and Grice.
That time Grice locked up his brakes and just about took Perkins with him, Murray. That was unbelievable. In fact, I think Perkins saved Grice from going all the way around.
Well, what price Yokohama now? Or would you say that nothing would have held the ground?
If your brakes are... Oh, he really slammed on it. I think these fellas are really... They're trying to outbrake each other at the end of the straight. Perkins is going for the doctor to stay in front of Grice, and Grice is trying to outbrake Perkins. In the process, the rear tires are locking up, and really we can't blame the tire for overzealous use of the brake pedal, Murray.
And I wouldn't dream of doing so, Alan, but... this is a marvellous demonstration to me of how top racing drivers have to really trust each other. They're on the limits of the machinery and the rubber, and each knows, presumably, that he can trust the other perfectly.
Well, two champions at work and two fellows that have raced each other all season. I don't think you're going to see them take themselves out.
The action is terrific at Adelaide, and it will be just the same when you rejoin us soon. Does so, his 20th lap ahead of Larry Perkins, who has got right behind him Alan Grice. In fourth position it's George Fury, and still in fifth place is Colin Bond. The gap between Dick Johnson, the leader, and Larry Perkins in second place, as you look at Johnson, is 12 seconds. So Johnson is in a very commanding position, and I guess the deciding point at the end is going to be the strength of his Sierra Cosworth engine. Alan, you drove one at Bathurst. How strong is it?
The engines themselves, Murray, are extremely strong, and they're not overly stressed. They only rev them to 7,500 RPM, which is not a lot. If people remember my little RX-7, we used to take to 9.5 to 10,500 RPM. Tremendous strains on the engine. I don't think Dick Johnson has got too many worries at the moment, watching the way the Commodores are having trouble with their brakes and a little bit of sliding in the corner. But 12 laps as he sits behind that wheel now in his Shell Sierra is going to seem like 12,000 to him. He'll be waiting and hoping that every lap is another one closer to one of his major victories here in Australia this year.
There may be a problem for Dick Johnson that's got nothing to do with the engine. If you look very closely, you can see that the automatic jacking system seems to be about to automatically jack. I hope for his sake it doesn't.
Well, if it does, Murray, it'll just rip off. The only danger to him will be that it goes under the car and out the back and not over one of his tires that would put a nice big slice through the middle of it. The other thing that will be a worry, will we have an overzealous Clark, of course, who will haul him in?
You see that bit sticking down on the, it's between the right front and right rear wheel. Look underneath Dick Johnson's Sierra as it comes towards you, and you'll see the telescopic pillar sticking down. It's well clear of the ground. It's no problem. There it is. You see it. Now, Dick Johnson is on lap 22 in this 32-lap race. He has a commanding lead of over 12 seconds, and it looks as though little can stop him from winning, although I have said that in the past, only for whoever I was talking about to disappear. Let us hope that that does not happen to Dick Johnson. He has driven absolutely magnificently. He's come from 5th on the grid, picked his time. We had the sensational start when Peter Brock went from 8th to 2nd, only to retire. But Dick Johnson has driven equally well to come from 5th into the lead, which he has held since the, I'm just checking, 7th lap. We are now on lap 22. Dick Johnson is in a commanding position. He's been there for a long time. He will know, I guess, from pit signals, Alan, exactly what the score is.
Oh, definitely. He'll be running on his gap. He'll know exactly. And plus his rear-view mirror, he won't be too shy looking at that on the straight. And he'll be feeling comfortable in terms of not being under a great deal of pressure. He won't even know that that jack is coming down. It's the right rear jack. And as it comes down, it'll only bounce up again. It's going to be a very, very strange set of circumstances that really allows it to jackknife out of the car.
And you saw Peter Brock there taking a very genuine interest in, there he is, leaning on the pit wall, watching the race he would have hoped to win in his last appearance for Holden before he becomes the boss man of BMW.
He looks like management material there, Murray. You know, I think you could be convinced that there's a fella you'd put your money behind.
I have just a vague suspicion that you're stirring something there, Alan, so I better avoid that one.
I'm looking forward to racing him again next year.
Great. Well, here's someone else you'll be up against. There is Dick Johnson as we watch Alan Bryce go through, and the gap is increasing, if anything. Perkins 2nd, Bryce is 3rd, but you can see now that Larry Perkins has extended his lead. Here he comes. There's the big Casio Holden of Larry Perkins, ex-Grand Prix driver, in 2nd place. And it looks as though he is shaking off Alan Bryce.
He's definitely held off that challenge very nicely, Murray. And I would say he's in a position now with the only 9 laps to go that he possibly can do that. If it was tires that was fighting and holding the war at bay, then his Dunlops have done him well. But I'd like to also comment on the fact that you're looking at one of the best handling Commodores in Australia. And as such, in a long race and a hot day when tires become a factor, when they don't want to do their jobs as well as they should, then if your engineering is built into your car, you can still come through and hold the day.
Is that special handling, Alan, due to special bits or special skill in setting the car up?
It's in the driver's skill and the ability to know how to get the spring rates on your old car, your whole shock absorber package, your brake package, and in fact the weight of the car from front to rear has a very, very critical fact.
Well, Larry Perkins has clearly done a super job. This is lap 23, and the race order is still Dick Johnson leading, Larry Perkins that you're looking at in second place, pulling away from Alan Grice in third position. In fourth place now, it's still George Fury, 42-year-old George Fury in the Nissan Skyline. In fifth position, it is Glenn Seaton. No, it's not. I'm sorry, it's Colin Bond, of course. Glenn Seaton disappeared. Colin Bond in fifth position in the Alfa Romeo. And sixth is still David Parsons, ahead of, in seventh place, Tony Kevich. And there we go. There are the numbers. Those numbers, incidentally, along the bottom of the screen, show number 17, Dick Johnson, in the lead. And there is Grice in third place.
This car had a savage run in New Zealand a fortnight ago, Murray. They had trouble in New Zealand and took a fairly savage clout into the wall over there. And with a shipping strike on the way back, I know Les Small and the fellows that prepare this car didn't have the 2 or 3 days that they really would have liked to have had to get this car into top shape, because this is not running at the pace that Grice had this vehicle doing a year ago today.
Well, they've done a magnificent external job on it, Alan. You'd never know it had been involved in any problems. Everything shipshape. Alan Grice down behind the wheel. Now we are on lap 24. There's not long to go on this 32-lap race, and you'll be back with us to see that. Lap 25, lap 26 now as you rejoin us. No change in the first five. Dick Johnson still way out there in front. Larry Perkins second in the Holden. Alan Grice in third position. George Fury in the Nissan Skyline is fourth. But I tell you what I find interesting, Alan Moffat, and that is that Colin Bond is in fifth place in the Alfa Romeo, because we don't, to be quite honest, in Europe, associate the Alfa 75T turbocharged car with a great deal of success. He seems to be going extremely well.
Oh, he's worked very hard on his Caltex car, Murray. They've run it all season. He's taken the best he can from Europe. They didn't have extremely good luck at Bathurst, but it's nice to see Colin out here with a finish today in the last race of the season, and credit to his team.
Well, there is the Alfa crew in the pit lane, looking pretty relaxed and phlegmatic about it all, I must say. But out in front still, it's Dick Johnson, number 17. There he is, the car looking spick and span. Now, it's a lonely job out in front, but there is Colin Bond's car, the one that we were just talking about, the Alfa Romeo. Very, very distinctive lines with the high-rising rear, which is designed that way in order to assist the slipperiness of the car, the penetration. And Colin Bond, of course, very, very much the veteran Australian touring car champion as long ago as 1975, prior to which he'd had a string of rally successes, and prior to even that he won Bathurst in 1969. Indeed, I think I'm right in saying he's won just about every long distance race in Australia that it's possible to win.
A very accomplished driver and a very friendly fellow, and a gentleman, and a credit to the sport.
And there he goes, the leader now on lap 27. A lonely job out front, Alan. Is there any danger of Dick Johnson losing concentration?
No, because he'll be hearing every sound in Australia at the moment. Everything that is rattling on that Sierra, he'll be hearing. He'll have his toes crossed, his fingers crossed. The smoke is starting to permeate up the back of the car again. And I know one thing, he'll have his eyes glued to that tacho, Murray. He won't be taking it 1 ounce over 7,000 RPM. He'll be watching for his oil pressure. He'll be checking the turbo temperature. He'll be gluing his eyes every 5 seconds to the rear view mirror, making sure that he's still in safe place. And most importantly, when he goes by his pits, checking how many laps have I got to keep going.
Well, he's got 5 laps to go at the end of this one. 5 long, lonely laps. Dick Johnson, now you look down the straight, Johnson out on his own. If he wins, and he's going to win if he stays where he is now. How much is it going to mean to him having won at Adelaide?
A tremendous amount, because taking a leaf from Larry Perkins' comments, it is very, very nice to be associated with the Foster's Australian Grand Prix. Not every race we've got has such tremendous atmosphere. Nothing has the atmosphere that we see here today in Adelaide, short of Bathurst, and it's a tremendous thrill for these fellows to be participants in a great event like the Australian Grand Prix.
Well, it's a wonderful advertisement for Australian organisation, administration, presentation and enthusiasm, because there is an enormous crowd in the grandstand here watching now Alan Grice, and there in front of him Dick Johnson is now on his 28th lap. So there are 5 laps including the one he's on. He has commanded this race from the 7th lap, and this is lap 28, and even I can work out that that is 21 laps in the lead, and that is a long, long time.
And I think he got there, Murray, by virtue of the fact that he was prepared to throttle himself a degree in the opening laps, and even though that smoke's getting bad now from our point of view, I think it can go 5 laps at that pace. It's certainly not licking up all over the car, and there's not a lot of smoke coming out the exhaust pipe. That looks more like an overrun leak, perhaps a gearbox leak. On the downshift, it's throwing oil up a bit and getting on the exhaust pipe, but it doesn't seem to be an engine problem as such.
That's the upside. I must say on the downside it sounded a bit rough to me as he went past our commentary position on the previous lap. Coming through to complete his 29th lap in this 32-lap race. Time for you to leave us for a short while. Be back soon. 29, Dick Johnson leads, but I don't want to be an alarmist. I want you to make your own judgment. Larry Perkins is 2nd, Grice is 3rd, Fury is 4th, and Bond is 5th. But is Johnson in trouble? Listen to for yourselves to the engine of his Ford Sierra Cosworth.
Still pulling out cleanly, Murray. He's certainly not revving it. He's letting the turbo take care of itself on the straights. He's not giving it a big squirt by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, this is lap 30 in this 32-lap race, and we now need to get a stopwatch on Dick Johnson in the lead with a puff of smoke, blue smoke coming from the back of his car as he throttles down, and see what the gap is between himself and Larry Perkins, who is 2nd, followed by Grice in 3rd position. Fury is in 4th place. Colin Bond is still 5th, no change there. And Dick Johnson coming up to that tail end to pass him cleanly and swiftly, so there's certainly no problem on the straight.
Well, they blew a gearbox up in this car yesterday, and that was one of the reasons why Dick didn't get as good a qualifying time as he probably could have, 5th place on the grid. And let's just hope that this isn't a weak gearbox coming to the forefront again to plague him on the very last lap.
Well, the gap last time we took it was 12 seconds between Dick Johnson in the lead and Larry Perkins in 2nd place. Larry Perkins seems to have dropped back a bit. There is Grice. Now, where is Dick Johnson on the circuit? There is Grice anyway, and he's got George Fury right up behind him. It looks as though we are going to have a grandstand finish. This is coming up to the end of lap 30. Dick Johnson across the line now. Grice spins out. It is all happening in the closing stages. Look at that. Now, what is the gap? I'm looking for Larry Perkins, because the leader, Dick Johnson, has gone through. There is Perkins going very slowly indeed, 16 seconds. So, Dick Johnson is definitely going a bit slower, but Larry Perkins has slowed right up. Grice has spun off. Fury is now into 2nd place.
The tires have given up on them, Murray. That's what happens. Yep, absolutely.
Alan Grice displaying that top racing driver's coolness, looking to the left, looking to the right as he spins off. But now on lap 31 out of 32, whilst Dick Johnson is leading in the Ford Sierra Cosworth, which is a little bit sick, but not sick enough to worry him, I hope. Up into 2nd place in the Nissan Skyline 2-litre turbocharged car comes George Fury. Down to 3rd place goes Larry Perkins. In 4th place behind Perkins now it is Colin Bond. Up into 5th position comes David Parsons.
Well, that's a nice finish for George Fury to go out at the end of the season. That's the last run for this car that it'll ever have. They're going to a new car next year, a 6-cylinder version of the Skyline. and awfully nice to get a place. If you can't win, second's pretty darn good in this business.
There is George Fury, number 30, third in the 1987 Australian Touring Car Championship. Winner of 5 out of 10 rounds in 1986. Fifth in the James Hardy 1000 this year, and he was fourth at Wellington, the New Zealand race. And here is Dick Johnson starting his last lap, his 32nd and last lap. As I said earlier on, from lap 7 where he took the lead, he's commanded the race. The gap between himself and George Fury, though, is down to 7 seconds. This is amazing.
Johnson is squirting from side to side on the track, Murray. If he's got a fuel pickup problem, that's the normal telltale.
We could see George Fury win this race on the last lap. That would be tragic for number 17, race leader Dick Johnson. Listen to his engine.
It's not running on all 5, all 4, all 3, or even all 2.
Now, look for the Nissan in the background. You saw it. And as Dick Johnson comes up to Stag Turn to go down Rundle Road and then to Catterville Terrace, I think he's going to lose the race.
If Fury can come through there on full pace, he's going to get a slipstream with this car in front of them. It's on the cards.
It's going to be fantastically close because Fury now is about 4 seconds, if that, behind him. George Fury, there is the gap. It's visual. This is the last lap here of this fantastically exciting race, which Larry Perkins did so well in, Peter Brock did so well in, Dick Johnson has done so well in. He's in the closing stages. He is in dire trouble. He's going to have a heck of a job to stave off George Fury, but he's looking cool, calm and collected.
He's definitely out of fuel, Murray. He's swaying from side to side, trying to get the pickup, the swirl in the tank. They have a reserve tank,
look at this.
No.
Last corner coming up. You can see the gap. George Fury is gaining hand over fist. Dick Johnson's going to be caught on the line. Is he? No, he's not.
He might just make it.
He wins. Dick Johnson wins from George Fury by 1.96 in a fantastic finish and a well-deserved win. And Larry Perkins staggers home in third place ahead of Alan Grice fourth. Well, so now in fifth position it is Colin Bond, and in sixth place it is David Parsons. Well, let's just recap on that fantastic race. As you see, Dick Johnson and George Fury driving round together, both taking the cheers of the crowd, which they both richly deserve, but especially Dick Johnson, because he managed to nurse that car home. Victory for Dick Johnson in the Ford Sierra Cosworth. Second place for George Fury in the Nissan Skyline. In third position, Larry Perkins in the Holden Commodore, ahead of Alan Grice fourth in another Commodore. Fifth was Colin Bond in the Alfa Romeo, and in sixth position, David Parsons. So how about that?
A great credit to see Dick Johnson has persevered with his car all season. It's not easy. As I mentioned earlier, if it was, everybody'd be in the business. To go out with a win, last race of the season, something that you can put under the Christmas tree and nurture for all your worries in 1988. That's got to be a lift for him and his team that have done a hard year's season.
Yes, well, tomorrow the Grand Prix. Today, the South Pacific Touring Car Championship, and we're going to have a job to have a Grand Prix tomorrow, but turns out to be as exciting in the last stages as that touring car race. Dick Johnson deserved his victory.
Group A racing is alive and well in the South Pacific, Murray. You might tell that to your friends in France when you're over there. I know you're very big in France.
Well, I think we're all conscious of that because Australia is the place we look to for touring car racing. You've developed these cars so magnificently. We know how well they go. It was tremendously interesting and exciting for all of us to have you and your compatriots over last year taking part in the European Championship Series, and we desperately want to see you all over there as much as possible. The trouble is, of course, that whilst Group A racing may be in good health in Australia, it doesn't seem to be in very good health elsewhere in the world for next year anyway.
Oh, well, with the development of the silhouette formula that our Formula One leaders have foisted upon us, we're going to have to hold the standard in this part of the world, and I'm sure watching races like we've just seen is an indication that we can do that.
That you will, I am sure. And there he is, the pride of Queensland, and deservedly so. Dick Johnson has completed his 33rd lap now. 32 laps plus his wind down finish lap. There's George Fury coming up into second position behind him, parking the skyline ahead of Larry Perkins' Holden Commodore. And you'll notice we didn't mention this, but alongside Larry's name on the windscreen is the word Hulme. That is, of course, Denny Hulme, the great ex-Grand Prix driver who now partners Larry in appropriate races. So a wonderful sight there. The Ford Sierra Cosworth in number 1 position, the Nissan Skyline in the number 2 slot, and third the Holden Commodore. 3 very, very different motor cars, and that shows how close and competitive.
2 for second.